So, we've recruited Andy Verboom to introduce Jason Dickson. Prize-winning poet Andy Verboom was our March feature. He organizes Couplets, a collaborative poetry reading series, and edits Word Horde, a journal of creative and academic dialogues. Andy Verboom.
Okay, who the hell is Jason Dickson? For God's sake, someone please yank him down from his self-erected soapbox. Dickson's rant describing Canadian literature as pedantic, boring prose rife with cliché and sham is nothing more than irrelevant babble. Who the hell is Jason Dickson is probably the most asked question in London. At the next Kangaroo Variety, we could just have Jason on a soapbox and have everyone take turns yanking him off. She doesn't know who Jason Dickson is? What rock does she live under? Who the hell is Jason Dickson anyway? Jason Dickson once brought a grown man to tears simply by critiquing his poetry in a downtown coffee shop. Considering the effect he has on grown men in coffee shops, are you sure you would want to expose yourself to that kind of thing? Well, I guess you have a chance to get up and leave now if you don't want to expose yourself to that kind of thing. I was just reading Facebook comments about Jason Dickson. He's a very well-known and popular man, but here's my answer, I guess, to who the hell is Jason Dickson. He's our very own old man book, forming half of London's Brown and Dickson antiquarian booksellers with his partner, who's here tonight, and co-author, Vanessa Brown. Their latest book collaboration is the local history book London Culture, 150 Moments, which will be published by Biblioasis this June. Are you guys done revising it? Is it all wrapped up?
Finally.
Good, glad to hear it. Jason also has 3 solo titles out through Book Thug, including the chapbook Clearance, Selected Journals of Dr. Michael Purdon, Parapsychologist. Yeah, he's weird. It's getting weirder. The postcard novel The Hunt, which was published in 2006, and the genre-weirding kind of pseudo-ethnographic interview style with asides, Glen Piano by Gladys Prittis, which was published in 2010. He's got a wide variety of writing in an even wider variety of magazines and on different websites such as Broken Pencil, Canadian Notes and Queries, Fine Books and Collections, Geist, Kotaku, Open Letter, and Rumort. Jason and Vanessa are also, if you don't know them, they're very crucial, tireless supporters of the London literary and arts scene. Yeah. They are responsible specifically for the I don't think this is an exaggeration, hugely successful Kangaroo Variety, which is a monthly-ish live magazine spectacular. They've also hosted numerous strange and lovely and community-building events at their downtown bookshop. And Jason has also, to my great indebtedness, played venue host for Couplets for a while now. And he participated last December in Couplets with Kevin Heslov. Kevin and Jason's collaborative work for that event was hilarious, persona-driven satire. There was a deep ridiculing of London in it and a deep love of London in it. And I think that that's a hard balance to strike, and both Jason and Vanessa strike it really well. This persona aspect seems to be Jason's forte. Despite knowing him for a little while now, despite many conversations, despite having seen him read before, despite having had conversations about our ongoing work, I have no idea what you're in for tonight, what his new work is going to look like. I can easily say I've been looking forward to this poetry reading with a kind of anticipation and apprehension and maybe a little bit of terror that I don't reserve for a lot of poets. So please welcome Old Man Dickson.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. Anticipation, apprehension, and terror are the three qualities that I hope to inspire in a reader of my work, and I'm very pleased to know that I've done it in his heart. I think it's fair as background, I should let you know that in Artscape, when I called Canadian literature rife with, what was it, they called it a sham. It was about Canada Reads, and I was not a fan of Canada Reads at the time. It was about 10 years ago. I've since come to like it in those 10 years. I've grown up a bit, and at the time I felt it was very sort of a pandering, middle-brow show that had very safe books on it and nothing too challenging. And as a young man, of course, I felt that they had a moral duty to be more challenging. And actually, they obviously have read all of my letters, because it's a lot more challenging now than it used to be, and I really do enjoy it. And they get good people on it, which is great, and it actually has a purpose. But back then, I didn't really care for it, and expressed it in the pages of our local magazine, Artscape. But yeah, hi Graham, how's it going? So I thank you so much. This is the first time that I've read in London, Ontario, since Couplets, and Couplets was the first time that I'd read in London, Ontario since coming back from Muskoka, probably for about 5 years. So this will be the second time, and I'm really grateful to Stan for inviting me. This does mean a lot to me to be up here. So tonight I'm going to read you guys some stuff that I've never read before. I'm a child of the 21st century. I have it on my iPad here. But I have brought my actual books here too, which on the walk over, I was remarking to myself my publisher's love of the color beige. Apparently, he perhaps associates my writing with the bland, safe color of beige. But I'm pleased to say that the front of the one book is a bit less beige than this. So
very exciting.
This compared relatively, this is thrilling, right? Relatively speaking, this is thrilling. So I'm going to read stuff to you from this new book that I'm working on called The Demon Book. Okay. Now, the conceit of The Demon Book, when I was living up in Muskoka, I got my family history. So a number of people in my family had passed away in quick succession. And my grandma, who lives in Thorndale, Ontario, and still lives in Thorndale, Ontario, that's just north of here a bit, gave me our family history, like banker's boxes filled with arcana and genealogical information and newspaper clippings of any time someone from us made the local paper, like the London Free Press or the St. Mary's Journal Argus. And this was a monolith. It was a monolith of genealogical obsession with the Dicksons and the Fultons and the Stones in the area. And I was also writing a book about demons. I was really interested in how ridiculous demonology was, and but fascinated, like genuinely fascinated, like Vanessa and I's love for London, Ontario. And I thought neither of them were going anywhere, and I thought, well, let's just take the two and just smash them together for a while and see what happens. And I started writing a book about the history of my family in West Rydzewski in Middlesex County in London, Ontario, told as if the moment they arrive, demonic spawn crawled from the earth and let itself loose upon the world and haunted them and chased them for the 150 years they've been here. And that went nowhere too. But what worked was these poems that I wrote in all earnestness, that taking the voice of, say, my grandma or my great aunt or my great great grandfather, talking about their sort of experiences living in rural areas, but also rural areas where you could become demonically possessed. So these are those poems, and so that's what I'm going to read right now. So this first one's called The Seven, and it actually, in this reality, is one of the oldest poems apparently on Earth. It's a Babylonian poem and it was apparently discovered on a stone. But in my book, it's rewritten for us, and it's discovered on a stone when a farmer is tilling the earth in its farm, and it comes up, and of course, horrible things happen once it appears. But this is a reworking of a Babylonian poem, and it's called The Seven. Okay. There are 7 in number, just 7. In the terrible depths, they are 7. Bow down in the sky, they are 7. In the terrible depths, in the dark houses, they swell, they grow tall. They are neither female nor male. They are silence heavy with sea storms. They bear of no women, and their loins are empty of children. They are deaf to men's prayers. Entreaties cannot reach them. They are strangers to pity. Compassion is far from them. This is the first poem ever written, so setting the tone for much of what followed. They are horses that grew to great size, that feed on mountains. They are the enemies of our friends. They feed on the gods. They tear up the highways. They spread over the roads. They are the faces of evil. They are the faces of evil. They are 7, they are 7, they are 7, they are 7. In the name of heaven, let them be torn from our sight. In the name of the earth, let them be torn from our sight. And like I said, this was discovered on an ancient stone dug up in a Middlesex County farm. So this is early in the book when the settlers have arrived and the demons have filled the forests with their evil doings, and this one's called "It's Easy to Get Lost Near the Thames." I'll just wait for my dad to pull out of the parking lot there. I told him to leave. He's pretty angry. So it's easy to get lost near the Thames as it sneaks through the tufts of forests, appearing every acre near farms with their own wildness, settlement, and entrapments. But to approach it from the fields for a moment and reach a clearing, as they never enter the water, often baptized and clean. On a moonlit evening, the folk lining the road with their wagons, watching as each took their turn, falling in the water, born in the water, knowing that the river, the Thames River, not their good farm, was the safest place to be. And this one's about attending a Sabbath. It's called Mercury Deposited. How do they call us? Is there another light inside of us in the blind parts of our body? A light seen only at the edges of light, but the purple light from the sun spreads out. It is then that we feel it rising up, this second body with purple eyes and an unknown shape turning its head from side to side quietly. The shape that can pull us from our beds, make us climb out of the window and shimmy down the porch railing. Called by the demons that stand in the street, beautiful, pale, and thin demons, with branches for fingers and bark for eyes that taste like maple syrup. It is a sixth sense, and we know others have it because we see them in the sky. We see them flying from their houses, and we all walk into the fields together, to the dark streams, to eat the flesh of fish and call out, making love, snapping the bones of animals, always happy. So this one was published in a magazine called Rotor, and it's cool because it's a French and English magazine, and they get an artist from somewhere. In this case, it was really cool. In this case, it was someone who did a cover for a Bjork album, and they got him to write something, and then the editor translates it into English or French, and then not always well. So you sometimes get a very strange thing, and then you respond to that, and then they translate it into French, and you respond to that. So that will, and it happens 10 times, and that accounts for some of the weird syntax in this, because I stole lines from the original piece. And I'm just saying this just so that you don't think less of what I've written when I read it. So, but some of it's awkward because it was an English translation. So anyway, this one's called To Soar Towards Backcountry. And it was written by Zeta Hugel, which was my great aunt in Ingersoll, Ontario in 1931. Are you from Ingersoll?
Yes.
Okay, cool. My family was from there. They were actually a photographer. The Hugel photography firm was apparently from there, and my great aunt worked there. So anyway, representing. To soar towards backcountry, and wait at the edge where the town and country meet, and at the edge hear the sounds of creatures out there. To pass time, to look, to find what not to lose, and step out into the backcountry, into the cornfields, and sit looking up as creatures run by you. The creatures that come as they will, and approach you, and sit looking up, a great black shape that breathes out and nuzzles you with its big black snout. Actually, it just says nuzzles you with its black snout, but I don't know, I just added big because I want to be Dennis Lee or something, I don't know why. Lying down with you, a bull or worse, a wicked tongue. It could be worse, truly, but you went there expecting stars and found corn in the sky and a black beast lying down with you. To dream at this point? Sure. Why not hear the others approaching? Why not sit with them as well, breathing in and out, just like them? So this one was written by my grandma who lost her... Thanks, Graham. Thanks, man. So my grandma lost her husband and her daughter, actually, within about 3 years. And so I wrote this poem for her, for my grandma Fulton. She's still alive. She's good. She's great. I bought her a little stuffed bird for Christmas, and it's sitting in her apartment right now. But this one was for her. So this is for my grandma. It's called Despair is Not a Great Thing Here. Despair is not a great thing here. It is for back rooms or the furnace. It is a brief moment on a pillow before returning to the house. The long winter has enough to say for it, and the waiting of everyone has enough to say for it. If you went to see it, you'd be looking elsewhere. You'd head down the street until you hit the bridge, then you'd turn left, then go to the Y Creek. You'd see a trail, you'd follow it. And when you were walking, you'd watch the trees, see how low they are when they're watched. You'd see the tips of their branches and the thin creek below them. You'd follow the trail into the bush, to Fulton Junction, where we cut every other tree down and laid it sideways. Go further, tell me, what do you see now? A shack, built by me, by us, for the long day to lay in. This one's called The Winter of 1975, and it takes place in Thorndale, Ontario. The winter of 1975, a dark chapter in the history of Thorndale. It was not the grain mill closing, or the new subdivision, all empty. It was not the backyards of our neighbors and their speed and their slow speed. One caught glimpses of it in the creatures that crept around at night. Raccoons that looked like raccoons, but had bloodshot mouths and razor tails. Folks understandably stayed home. They spent more time in their houses, beneath the paintings, sleeping in. The living rooms, the dining rooms, the bedrooms, Night came and we fell asleep on the furniture. Then a train stopped a mile from town. We all heard it pass, then stop. We walked out with a flashlight and dog to see it and found most of the village there. And afterwards, we closed the blinds and lit the rooms from the tables. The garden was left to go. And folks took much longer getting up in the morning. The men made it out to the trail now and then, but nobody knew what to say. What do you say? They asked, and they said nothing. Hey. So this one's about the new bank that was built when I was about 5 years old. Bank of Montreal, Thorndale, Ontario. A big deal in Thorndale. So it's called the New Bank, exclamation point.
Now they're closing them.
Are they closing that bank?
No, they're closing them now.
Oh, probably, yeah. Next time I go out there. Actually, in the book, in the other version of the book, demons burn down every building in Thorndale. So, like Downtown London, Layers of Time, or like an architectural history book, every building had a little caption under it. Built in 1935, burned in 1940. But this one's about a new bank, so here. We fretted, we fumed, we cried, we swooned when the former bank burnt down. But now we have a new bank. It's so pretty, with its parking lot and fresh landscaping. On September 19th, the opening took place with 45 people who ate coffee and donuts. There were balloons for the kids and sundry items for the adults to enjoy. That line's actually taken straight from the London Free Press, which I love it. Sundry items for the adults to enjoy. But we did not see what was coming. We did not see the signs. We celebrated as any town would, ignoring the black windows, eyeing the pens on chains. And this is cribbed from the London Free Press article about my Grandma and Grandpa Stone's 50th wedding anniversary. We were residents of the Rydzewski town line. We farmed, we woke up each morning. We dreamed of a life beyond this world. We were married in the home of Mary's parents. I wore a gold rose on a boutonniere, she a pink crimpled coat dress. On our 50th anniversary, our 2 daughters made the cake, and our 2 granddaughters helped in the tea room. The town presented us with a beautiful crystal perpetual motion clock. A letter of congratulations was sent from the Prime Minister, but we did not know what was coming. We did not see the signs. We celebrated as any happy couple would, ignoring the black windows, admiring the pretty crystal clock. So,
But what was coming?
Pardon me?
What was coming? What happened to them?
We have to read the book. Like it's, yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh.
Death is coming to them. I don't know, something awful is coming. Something awful.
Continual sense of horror.
Yeah. That's not coming, that's here, always. Continual sense of foreboding. Existential dread, that's a constant. Rewritten folk songs that I found of Pennsylvania Dutch folk songs, not Pennsylvania Dutch, but Dutch folk songs in Waterloo County. And I've stolen them and I've planted them into West Rydzewski, Middlesex County. But these are versions of those folk songs. First one's called The Sabbath. Of course, we all know that classic. Off we go to the Sabbath again, dear Grandma, dear Grandma. Give us a piece of unbaptized liver. Oh, how I love it, dear Grandma. We saw their hordes flying in the skies. Our flying friends, dear Grandma. You opened the window for us to fly out. Oh, how you love us, dear Grandma. This one's called Hens and Chickens. Grandma, Grandma, please tell me, what are the hens and chickens? Grandma, Grandma, nice to see growing hens and chickens planted beside the kitchen door. They'll bring good luck forevermore. So apparently, actually, in demonology, in the history of real-world solutions to these otherworldly problems, you of course planted you plant the body of a dead chicken near your house, but in my book, you plant a live chicken and with its feet sticking out and wiggling. And there's a little diagram that was going to go in the book showing you how to do this, which is awful. I mean, you shouldn't do that. It's called In the Dark of Night. In the dark of night, it's another folk song. In the dark of night, when the air is still, the demons hoot, the air will fill. Those eerie sounds that cause affright come through a tree, through paling light. Its head so large it turns to see, with eyes of evil, carefully, to spy on children, unaware, soon to be its midnight fare. I was actually thinking, Vanessa, while I was reading that we should use that on our kids when they're acting up. Animals. So this one's called A Chickadee Singing, and this is, again, a Dutch folk song. A chickadee singing over the corpse of my friend, chickadee-dee-dee. A demon eating the heart of my friend, chickadee-dee-dee. Where are you, my dearest friend, chickadee-dee-dee? I'm in the ground looking up at you, chickadee-dee-dee. And why can't I reach you? My arm is in the ground, chickadee-dee-dee. I am deep, deep, deep where you cannot reach me, chickadee-dee-dee. This is called To Market My Grandfather Goes. Before the dawn and break of day, Grandpa would feed the horses hay, then load the old sleigh with many good things to be sold at market in London town. London, London, to market he goes. The road was covered with great pools of black. Pitch holes were plenty, the pace was slow. With wind from the north all blustery and cold, for the horses and the man on the sleigh was old. London, London, to market he goes. In the dusk of morning he managed to see a dark figure trudging. Just who could it be? There an old woman had shouldered a pack that seemed to be heavy upon her poor back. London, to market he goes. Just then the horse with the loud did come near. The little old lady with a voice loud and clear. Is that you, Mr. Dickson? I'm sure it must be. A ride from you, please. Will you give it to me? London, to market he goes. And slowly she stepped up to the sleigh. 'Twas a pack of small piglets that heavy did weigh. She thought for a moment, then said, of course, I'll eat the young man, makes light for the horse. London, London, to market he goes. Before the dawn and break of day, the little old lady would feed the horse hay, load the old sleigh with many good things to be sold at market at London town. Great. Thank you. Okay, that's the last folk song. It turns out that my great-grandmother opened the first library in Thorndale, Ontario, and it was actually in my family's house. It was a Methodist library, but it was the first library in Thorndale. And I used to play in that room when I was a kid. There was a piano in there, and my cousin and I used to fight and beat the crap out of each other. But at one point, it was a room of sophistication and some enlightenment. And I wrote this poem for my grandma, my great-grandma, who was the first librarian in Thorndale, Ontario. So it's called My Power When I Am Big. I think I see my power when I am big, pushing out into the world, forcing out. But then I say, Go inside. It is inside. The place you want is inside of you. Still, I love my library. I go there to work, to lend out books to the neighbors. I go inside there too, into herb recipes, into amulets and sequences and signs. It's good that I keep going. For one night, while I was reading, a creature walked in, made of branches, and sat in the brown chair across from me. He smiled, saying he loved to read what we wrote. It was like the drawing of a child, similar but off, dumb, yet trying to make its mark. The world doesn't look like that, he said. It doesn't even look like this. If you want, I will show you. I'll take you to the edge of town, into the dark field, dark with old barns and the bones of animals. It's okay. It's inevitable. You just need to wait. And all of this, all that you love, will expire like last breath, like sleep. And all of this work, this earnest, wet, tiresome work, will settle into the earth, like a dog turning on the grass. I'll still try, I said. Oh, please do, was his reply. And he left into the fog of King Street, waving at my little lamp that burns to let the neighbors know that I'm there. So that's it for the demon poems. How much time do I have? 24 minutes?
3 or 4
minutes? Oh, should we just do the Q&A then?
No, do another 5 minutes for you.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, right on. Right on. Okay, so I'm gonna read some poems, having exhausted all my current material, from The Hunt, which is a book that Book Thug put out a while ago, and actually no, I'm gonna read from this one. So this one's called Clearance: Selected Journals of Dr. Michael Purton, Parapsychologist, and each poem is titled after a house in London, Ontario. And the conceit of the book is that a parapsychologist has lost his wife, and he starts exploring houses in London, Ontario to try to find her, just in case she haunts them. And while he's waiting for the ghost to show up, he has his journal, and he writes poems down in that journal. In true horror literature style, I'm the antiquarian who's found these journals, and then I've edited it into this lovely little book, published by Book Thug. So this one is 242 Hill Street. It's near the old antique shop. Remember that big red building on Wellington there? And it's gone. The house is gone now. 242 Hill Street. Parts of our house are starting on fire. I found the beige chair that is in the living room burning the other day when I went in. I am frantic when fire is around. It leaves nothing untouched. It makes me wonder how fire spreads so fast. I keep my house cool, with the blue of night throughout. A fire heads up my walk. It kicks aside the fence and the rain. And this one's 156 Hyman Street. There must be wood, like a lit banister, like in spirit photography, with a long form, its arms around me in the stair, like a killer. My words must be complete and cover every corner they reach, fill a bucket with water or a room with smoke. And I will be a ghost in the pews, a ghost in the room, a ghost on fire, where the shift of my form along every edge sends the room spinning. And I come down pale and face my congregation. I lay my hands on the lectern like a sleeve. My face blurs in the light. My hands fold like a wick before me. I discuss a trip I once took. a large raft or a car, in the mountains. It was long, unlike myself, bewildered, time spent elsewhere. I'd forgotten my coat. I remember to say something but forget, when the congregation rocks to sleep, like a big ship built of everything outside. The lean hush of rooms, the pause of eyes about to close, a small sound in the middle window pane. Little did they know my body, still alive in the back room. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so a round of applause for Jason. I just have to say that, Jason, you live in a really fun and scary place, and I would like to be in your world, okay? The other thing I thought about when I was listening is why we all love ghost stories, right? Because ghost stories happen in these familiar places where you're safe in your bed, right? Or you're safe in the library, and then suddenly something happens. And don't you love that? Don't you love that? Like, ooh, like so scary. So that was beautiful. Thank you. Okay, Q&A. Anyone have a question? Stan.
Yeah, where did all that demon stuff start in your mind? How did you get into that?
Where did the demon stuff start in my mind?
Yeah.
So I had a really important moment. I remember when I was younger and wanted to be Leonard Cohen, and was failing at being Leonard Cohen, and I remember a decision to stop writing about things I didn't know anything about, and I'm just going to write about the stuff I love. But the stuff I loved was like corny horror movies and like parapsychology literature and like those ghost hunter shows. And when I made that choice, it just writing was no longer felt like a chore, and it suddenly I felt liberating to do that. So the demon stuff was just stuff that interested me, and I mean, as you can certainly appreciate, like writing takes so bloody long, and to stick with the manuscript, you're with it forever. And if I'm writing about something that I think's both dumb and amazing, then it's a lot easier for me to stay interested. So yeah.
Yes.
What was the biggest lesson you've learned on your literary journey so far?
That one's tough.
He asked, what's the biggest lesson you've learned in your literary journey?
Yeah.
What's the second best one?
Second best one? Okay, so this might sound cruel, and I sincerely don't mean it to be, because it was very, very helpful to me, and the person who said it actually ended up becoming a really good friend of mine. But I remember when I was younger, I was about 19, and I was reading at reading downtown at a cafe that doesn't exist anymore, and I had just given everything that I had on the stage, just opened my heart and just frothed forward the muses and was wrapped up in it. And I remember walking off the stage, and this guy leaned over and he's like, "Nobody cares, buddy." And I've never forgotten that. I actually took it to heart, and I was like, I have to start this presuming that nobody cares about this. So that was really helpful.
Well, because then you're completely free, right? Like, who gives a fuck, right?
Totally.
Yeah, totally. And it was around that time I started just writing about like monsters, like sea monsters. Like I used to write poems about aliens and sea monsters, and then only I cared, and I just entertaining myself. Right?
Jason, do you have more demon poems coming up? I'm thinking about, under in the tunnel.
That's a really good idea.
Can you imagine?
So we don't know what they're going to find down there, right?
No.
So they're building a tunnel, and perhaps they find something that they should have just left alone, right? And maybe that's possible. That's possible. I promised myself I wasn't going to talk about BRT tonight, but that's okay. No, actually, that sneaks through because it's a really good idea.
Where could we go if we wanted to find your publications from Book Thug or like take your updates of the new book coming out?
Yeah, these have sold out, and there's no plans on printing anymore because I think I have a readership of 5 altogether. But there's probably only a handful of copies left. There's some on the used market, like you can get them on ABE and Amazon, but we don't have any at our store. But the new book is coming out that I wrote with Vanessa in June, and it's a history of culture in London, Ontario, starting with John Graves Simcoe reaching the Thames and deciding to make this the capital of Upper Canada, and of course it not becoming the capital of Upper Canada. And starts from that sort of sets the tenor of the story, and starts from that, and it ends with Rachel McAdams and Ryan Gosling kissing in The Notebook, the movie The Notebook. Big, wet, 2 faces right at the end of the book. So it's the story of London culture. It has Curnow and... Yeah. Well, they were dating. They're both from London. They're original kids grads, I think. Yeah, right? Yeah.
Well, I would like to know how to bury a live chicken beside my front door with its feet up like that. Is that another one you've got with that?
Very carefully. Someone stole my punchline. Yeah, very carefully. I'll send you the diagrams that I'm working on.
Okay, thank you.
Question? Yeah, Jason, do you think there's a common thread for you in your interest in like these otherworldly figures, like you're saying aliens, sea monsters, house demons, and ghosts? What's at stake for you there in matching this like supernatural presence?
Yeah. So that's a good question, and Kevin Heslop asked that a very similar question in the open mic interview. I really like and find fascinating, for the purposes of writing poems or stories, the idea of ordinary language and sort of secure, comforting language that we use every day, starting to reach the ends of its capacity to explain what is happening to somebody. So you take a nice farmer, or like my grandpa or something like that, and then you just stick a demon in there, and suddenly he's unable to really explain what's happening to him, but his language has to somehow. And I like that edge. It sort of reminds me of the parts of the city where it's half city, half country, and there's parking lots and the weeds are growing up. There's something really interesting about those half spaces, and so it's fun to take somebody like poor Dr. Michael Purden, rationalist, a scientist, and force him to try to describe in his vocabulary something that's extraordinary. And I think that you can really do a lot of fun stuff as a poet in that weird space. Because they have to make it up. They have to make it up, and you can just use whatever words you want. Yes, Vanessa, my wife.
This is the first poetry reading I've seen you at where I wasn't ready to figure out how to crush on you.
Right.
But I do actually, I was just thinking I was always a keener asking questions at your readings because I wanted your attention.
My wife, ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
Vanessa Brown.
I know you've had a lot of personal connections with death.
Yeah.
When you're working on your demon book or you're working on work that explores these darker elements, do you have that in your mind or do you put that out of your mind? Are they intertwined consciously, or is that a subconscious connection?
No, yeah, that's a good question. So I felt like, and not to, and I'm encroaching on pretentiousness here. Perhaps not for the first time tonight, but so Vanessa's referring to experiences in my life where I had to encounter the sudden death of family members and through tragic circumstances. And I remember writing about it, and it felt like someone deposited mercury in my blood or something like that. So it took like a really heavy but very, very tiny element and stuck it in, and it sort of races around, and you never really get rid of it. So I think with the demon stuff, when I'm writing, I do think it's probably just, I do try to get back there. For the ones that are good, like the one for my grandma, I tried to get back to that spot so I could remember sort of how I felt about what I saw her going through and things like that. But honestly, I'm really just more interested in the subject of the poem and the words, and they're biographical by accident, and they're not consciously biographical. Or by that I mean, I don't like think, how do I feel about this, or is this are these my philosophical thoughts on the subject? No, like I read about the things that interest me, and the conceit of the demons just allow me, I think, just to explore safely these experiences. So, does that answer your question?
Yes.
I can give her another shot tonight.
Yeah, because you live with her.
Yeah, I live with her. I live with her.
She has a crush on you. Right?
She does.
Okay, a couple more questions. Yeah.
Jason, so much has been written and said about the Southwestern Ontario Gothic. It comes out of this area. It just seems interesting because your work seems to kind of occupy that space and completely blow it out of the water at the same time. And it seems funny distance from it. Like I'm laughing as it's also working in that way, like both at one time, which is pretty cool. And I'm just like, are you thinking about that genre and that tradition, or is it just you're just writing your stuff and what happens?
No, I'm completely thinking about that when I'm writing. Absolutely thinking about that. And I remember discovering those writers, discovering James Rainey, and finding out that Michael Ondaatje lived here, and Don Mackay, of course, as many of you probably know and love his work. When I found out that those people lived here, and that this, like in Stan Dragon's work, that this place influenced them so greatly, it was one of the greatest discoveries for me, and as a writer. And I totally just dove right in. I felt completely invited to the table. I was just like, this is going to be my tradition, and right, and so yeah, absolutely. But also don't want to. But yeah, within that, I just want to do my own dumb thing, like my own
like
stuff.
To make the Gothic literal.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally.
I don't know. It still carries the same kind of ominous whatever, but it makes it funny, and at the same time, a card trick and it's just really.
It's a lot of fun, and it's hard to take Thorndale, Ontario that seriously, right? Because it's 500 people, it's just filled with a bunch of old men, and and they're characters, they're funny, and so to write about rural life with this sort of like serious. I think Canadian literature has enough of that already, sort of the dour, tragic rural story, and I just can't write about my life without my tongue firmly in my cheek. So. But yeah, no, I was a big fan of Stephen King when I was younger, and loved, and still am, and loved the regionalism of his books, because they're all set in one town, and the history of that town's there. And say what you will about him, he's created a world, and he works in the Gothic tradition. And then when I found out that there was a Gothic tradition in my town and in London, it blew my mind. So.
Yeah, but to use your own words, Jason, you start with the ordinary and you bring in the extraordinary, right? Which I think is always out there. But you do, but you start with that ordinary of Thorndale, and then suddenly, whoo, there's this whole other world. Yeah. One more question? One more, I think?
Yeah, I'm more a music writer, okay, right?
Right.
But I always try to get into the front of, like I used to go to the fundamentalist religion thing.
Right.
Keywords, right? The pastor says to me, he says, oh, if you sell yourself to the devil, you can't wine, woman, and song. I says, how do you always has to be the devil and demons? Why can't this, And he goes, well, that's a correct so this Neolithic thing hasn't left us a lot. Like, I'm more like an atheist right now, but I can tell you, this thing with demons is it's still part of our psyche and still here, so I try to write it in my music sometimes, because Thorndale, my spouse is living north.
Oh, cool. Right on. Yeah.
Cherry Grove.
Yeah, I know Cherry Grove. Yeah. No, I went to school with a girl from Cherry Grove. I got really drunk in Cherry Grove once, actually. But no, it's like I'm always delighted when you're at a party and it's 2:00 at night and everyone starts inevitably telling ghost stories, or breaking out the Ouija board, or like talking about, oh, this thing happened to a friend of mine. Like this way of thinking is still very, very much a part of our lives, even though and I don't even really believe it, but I like it, and it's cool to see it. It's cool to see it come up, even though we pretend we're solid, rational citizens. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody.
So, how many of you have a little bit of a crush on Jason Dickson tonight? Come on, okay? Because, we all love a little bit that scary world.